Did you know that during the first month of invasion of Gaza, Israel used more than 500 Mk-84 one-ton bombs on Gaza, and that according to US intelligence sources, over the first 2 months of the war, out of the 29,000 projectiles dropped on Gaza, 40 to 45% were these dumb bombs. Let's explore it a little further. Now, we all know that Gaza is the most densely populated area in the entire world. Let's just look at a brief description of the map of Gaza. So the Gaza Strip that you see in the map, of course, it is surrounded on the Israeli side and the Egyptian side by a wall. It's the world's largest open-air prison. The total area is 141 square miles. The population before this war was 2.3 million, which means that the population density is 14,000 people per square mile. Now, this is the highest density of human beings living in an urban space. And in this area, the Israeli armed forces have used one of the most lethal, unguided, dumb bombs available to them, made by United States and made available by United States of America. Let's look at the specifications of the bomb itself. Okay, so this bomb, Mk-84, carries a total weight of 2,000 pounds, which is 1 ton. It has a killing radius of 400 yards or fragmentation radius of 400 yards. And it was first used by United States in Vietnam, then they also used it in Iraq and in Afghanistan. And Israel has used it previously as well, but extensively in this conflict. It is so rarely used by United States that last time the US used it, one bomb which they dropped in Raqqa over what was believed to be the ISIS headquarters. So overall, first of all, it's a huge bomb, 2,000 pounds of explosive. It is mostly a dumb bomb. That means it's not a guided precision bomb, even though it can be retrofitted to be a guided bomb. And it is not meant to be used in densely populated areas. The mere fact that it's a dumb bomb and that it has a killing radius of 400 yards already should tell any sane military commander that if you drop it within a densely populated area, no matter what your target is, you will kill innocent civilians and bystanders. Now, we know through a CNN report, and I'll post a link in the description, that CNN was able to verify use of at least 500 of these bombs in the first initial stages of invasion of Gaza. How did they do that? So they looked at the satellite footage of the craters. This bomb makes a 40 to 50 meter wide crater. And so they got the satellite imagery of the craters themselves, and they were able to find 500 of those craters. And then they contracted with a security company who actually then mapped it and gave them data proving that these were the one-ton bombs and they were dropped in those areas. And from there, CNN, in a way, extrapolates that a lot of the civilian casualties were caused by these bombs. So what are the ramifications of this knowledge? Obviously, the Israeli commanders knew the capabilities of this bomb. They also knew that dropping it on densely populated areas would cause civilian casualties. Now, the Israeli argument is that they needed to use a bomb like this because Hamas uses an elaborate tunnel network, and this bomb can be used as a bunker bursting or tunnel destroying bomb. Tactically, that makes sense. Now, tactically, you can justify anything. In terms of international law, is it okay to drop a lethal bomb with a lethal killing radius, unguided, knowing that it will destroy civilian lives? That's the decisions that the Israeli commanders and the prime minister made, and that decision, in my opinion, is against human rights and should be prosecuted and investigated and prosecuted as a war crime. Now, out of all the bombing activity in Gaza, the one that stood out to CNN was the bombing near a hospital and the bombing craters near a refugee camp. The hospital was spared at that time but is now destroyed. Now, what am I trying to highlight here? This information has been available on CNN website since December. What I am trying to highlight as someone who has served in the military and who is now, of course, someone who cares about Palestinian lives and is trying to raise awareness about their plight in the current conflict, what I'm trying to highlight is that someone somewhere in the Israeli government and military decided that they could use ammunition provided by United States in a way that it would ultimately also end up destroying civilian lives and civilian infrastructure. They did it knowingly. And the question is, are we going to hold them accountable? Because knowingly bombing a densely populated area filled with women and children and civilians is a war crime. Now, it's not just a war crime for the state of Israel. It's also a war crime for the supplier, the United States of America, and it's also against the US law. So that is why if you watched President Biden's recent interview where he openly announced that he is going to withhold the latest shipment of ammunition to state of Israel, and that he will hold that if Israel attacks Rafah. Now, part of it is because there is pressure on Biden to do something when Israel is using US-provided ammunition to kill civilians. But part of it is also because what Israel is doing is against US law. Before the United States sends their weapons and bombs to any ally, the Department of State has to certify to the Senate that these bombs have not been used against international law, against civilian targets, and will not be used. So the receiving nation certifies that, and the Department of State takes a look at it and reports to the Senate that yes, they have complied with our law. In this case, it is absolutely obvious that not only has State of Israel not followed the international humanitarian law, they have also defied the laws of United States of America. And that is why Biden ultimately had to do something. I'm not saying that he morally didn't feel compelled to do. I can't read his mind or heart. I would hope that the deaths of civilians and children and the starvation of human beings would have moved him to a point where he would do something. But legally also, he is bound to do something. So overall, we have Mk-84, a dumb bomb weighing 1 ton, not meant for densely populated civilian targets, being used extensively by State of Israel in Gaza, causing havoc, damage to infrastructure, but also to human life. And now, almost certainly being used in the invasion of Rafah. Now, I don't know where you stand on these things. I'm a former soldier, a former scholar even. To me, any nation state, no matter what their history, what their ideology, what their belief system, when they take it upon themselves to bomb civilians with lethal weapons, knowing that they will cause damage to civilian life intentionally, I think they should be held accountable. Just like United States should be held accountable for wherever it bombs civilians. Similarly, State of Israel should be held accountable for using US-made bombs that were never meant to be dropped on civilian population. Let's hope that this is a wake-up call for State of Israel. Let's hope you, me, and everyone else can continue agitating and putting pressure on US government to morally look at this conflict, but also to implement humanitarian law, United Nations, and also the US law, and not make exceptions in case of Israeli invasion of Gaza. That's all I have to say. I hope this was useful to you. The CNN story is in the description. You can read it and follow through as to how they reached their conclusions. My Palestine playlist will come up. Please do check it out and let me know what you think. If you have any questions and concerns, post them in the comments and I'll answer them. Thank you so much, and stay safe and take care of each other. From me to you, peace and love.